Good morning, everyone. To open the March 14th, 2024 Ag Preserve Advisory Committee. Could we have a roll call, please?
Good morning. Sergio Ricardo,
Here.
David Lackey,
Here.
Matt Mayton, Royce Larson.
Here.
Alex is absent.
Thank you. Now we turn to public comments on our agenda today. So this is for any public comments for items that are not on today's agenda. Do we have any people that would like to speak on public comment?
We do not have anybody in the public. If you're online and wish to speak, please raise your hand. Not seeing any public comment.
Okay, great, thank you. So now we'll consider the minutes from our February 8th, 2024 meeting. Any of the committee members have any comments or suggested revisions?
I do, Mr. Chair. I have on item number 5, we are listing 2 contracts, 16 AP 018 and 17. I think 16 AP 17 should be taken out. I don't think that was part of the original item. And also on the dates that it was continued from, this item was not continued from 8/10/23. I think it first came to APAC on 9/14/23. And the reason I know that is I went back to check to see if there were any comments, any other information about this item. And so those are my suggestions.
Okay. Any other comments for us? Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes with those amendments?
I would move that we accept the minutes as presented with the updates to them.
Second?
Okay. I have a second. Roll call, please.
Matt Mayton.
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Royce Larson.
Aye.
Vote carries as amended.
Now for agenda management, do we have any requests for any adjustments to our agenda? Either requested continuances or adjustments to the order? I do have one, but if anybody else has any?
No.
I think, so item number Item number 9 is under new items, and that's the ag land properties. Well, I guess that's correct because we're just listing it as to consider ongoing eligibility rights. So it's not a continuance. But my question was whether or not we needed to move that to the continued items, but I think we're okay. Maybe, yeah.
That is a good question. I do see that all of the dates that it was continued from are listed. So perhaps it is. I don't know.
David, that's the one. It was listed as a continued item, and Stephanie had requested it to be put on as a new item.
Either way, yeah, it'll be fine. So that, barring any others, we'll keep the agenda as presented. Okay, so let's jump into our continued items. So our first continued item is Jimenez Trust Residential Addition and Grading. And this was continued from the February meeting. And I believe primary reason for continuance was provide additional time for the contract owner to complete and submit the annual Williamson Act questionnaire to the county assessor's office. So do we have any report on that?
Yes, the questionnaire was completed and submitted. I have it here. If the agent or representative for this item, I just have one quick question. If they're here,
Yes. Present.
Miguel, we can hear you.
Okay.
okay. I just have a question on the olive trees that are being reported on the questionnaire. Are these olives for sale as trees? Meaning they're also like landscaping trees? Or do you guys produce fruit and sell the fruit?
No, they are strictly.
I'm sorry, sir, we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
We strictly sell it as landscaping trees. We do not sell
Landscape.
Landscaping trees? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to confirm.
only landscaping.
The question, why was it, why am I asking?
Oh, I didn't hear the,
Sounded like that.
No, I was confirming that we do only sell them as trees and not to sell as fruit.
To sell the fruit, okay. Yeah, just as an FYI, the reason I'm asking is because there was no report on the income from or production totals from the trees for the fruit. So I just wanted to make sure that you weren't selling the fruit, that it was just the trees for landscaping. And so, thank you.
Thank you.
So recall, I think when we did review this in February, the committee had reviewed the proposed residential addition and grading and didn't have any issues at that time. It was really just continuance for the questionnaire. Before we take a motion, is there any requests to speak from the public on this item?
We do not have any public speaker.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions for the committee? Anybody want to make a motion?
Sergio Ricardo?
We didn't make a motion.
Oh, sorry.
I'll make a motion. To find that the APEC finds that the proposed request for residential addition and grading is consistent with the uniform rules. And the contract 70 AP 154 meets ongoing eligibility requirements.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Sergio Ricardo?
Aye.
David Lackey?
Aye.
Matt Mayton?
Aye.
Royce Larson?
Aye.
Vote carries 4-0.
Next continued item is Shea Residence. This was continued from our February meeting. And so in our approved minutes for that meeting, it was continued to allow more time to provide information that shows the responsibilities and duties of the agricultural employees, as well as the necessity for a second dwelling for an agricultural employee. And also the committee had requested a new site map that reflects the updated non-agricultural envelope, including the access road and septic tanks. And I think we have the representative for the property owner. Maybe can go through the additional submitted materials.
Yes, hi. This is Henry Buckingham. Why don't we start with the site plan, which you have up there on the screen. You can, if you zoom in on the sort of dashed line in the middle of it, you can see how the 2-acre envelope was modified to include the driveway and septic tank.
It's not this one.
Okay, continue, Mr. Buckingham.
Yeah, there's the notes that are closest to the bottom on the screen now. It shows 2-acre envelope and then proposed 4240 house. The 2-acre envelope is pointing to the dashed line that surrounds the house, the septic system, and the driveway. So that's all been modified to include those items that were requested at the last meeting. I don't know if that's legible to you all or. Might help to zoom in a little more.
Is the line that bisects the, it looks like the home site, the envelope, is that line the property line, the parcel line?
The property line is, if you look, it says parcel 1 and parcel 2 sort of at the top of the screen now.
Right,
And there's a line that's dash dot dash or long dash, short dash, long dash, short dash.
right.
That comes down vertically from the top, and then you can see there's a water line adjacent to it, and then it kind of turns and follows the road, and then kind of as it goes down the page breaks down off to a little bit to the east and to the south. So right now the whole parcel is sort of clipped at the top and the bottom, but the line long dash, short dash that's shown represents the entire parcel.
Are both parcels, parcel 1 and parcel 2, are they both under the same contract?
No, those are separate owners, separate contracts.
So then my question is the 2-acre envelope, is that only the area within parcel 1?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, yeah, there's no. Yeah, that's correct.
I guess visually, yeah, the first one I was looking at that because I guess that water line that goes pretty much vertically down. But as you stated, the kind of the long dash, short dash line is a property line, and that follows the curve of the road. So the access road to the proposed house, that's all within parcel 1, and then that is also, it appears to be all within your 2-acre envelope that you've defined.
Yes, that's right.
Any other, Morris, did you have any other questions on the envelope itself?
Not on the envelope, I don't think.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Buckingham, and then I think one of the other requests was for information on the duties and responsibilities of the ag employee / caretaker.
Yeah, that's right. So we kind of I spoke with the owner and then we updated the narrative that is a Word doc that was also provided. And I can kind of go through that with you. It's, you know, it's one less than a page, a little bit less than a page.
Yes, please go ahead, and maybe Teresa, if you can bring that narrative up.
So,
Okay, Mr. Buckingham, if you could maybe summarize the information you
okay.
provided.
Yeah, there's the main agricultural operation of the property is a 50-acre walnut ranching operation. And then there are 5 additional things that the owner has identified as essentially being supportive of the walnut operation. And so just start, and that's items 2 through 6 on this list. So residential native ornamental plants, 3 acres of fruit, berries, grains, and vegetables, 5 acres of new native plants, 3 acres of livestock pens and sheds. And then the livestock is listed there: horses, cows, pigs, goats, and chickens. And then we go into who kind of takes care of this operation. And at present, there are 2 employees. The first is Arturo Perez, who lives on the property, and the second is Alejandro Castaneda, who lives offsite, and really out of necessity because there's nowhere for him to stay on site. And so again, the main part of, I think the main, I guess, request that we're making of the agricultural of this committee is that we turn the existing 1,400 square foot primary dwelling into an additional agricultural ag employee dwelling, and that would house Alejandro Castaneda. And as I said, Arturo currently lives in the other dwelling, which is 950 square feet. He's got a family of 4 in there. The 2 of them together. So the owner got information from the payroll company, Pacific HR, to try to get data on exactly how much of their time is spent on what. And based on that data, the percentages are currently that the 2 of them together spend 91% of their time on items 2 through 6. I'm sorry, item 1, which is the walnut orchard, and then items 2 through 6 occupy 9% of their time. The owner does want to develop and expand the kind of scope of items 2 through 6. And as I said, part of that is essentially these in his view that these items are supportive of item 1, and he provided the additional document, which is the Regenerative Organic Alliance, which kind of details how the organic operation and he's going for a certification with this group, the ROA group. He already has a certification with the CCOF, California Certified Organic Farmers, and the development of items 2 through 6 as integral support elements of item 1 is part of that effort in becoming certified ROA. In addition to that, the owner, so currently the walnuts are really the only thing that are sold commercially, and they're sold to one company wholesale who collects the harvest. So the owner harvests the walnuts, and then the one company collects the harvest, processes and markets the walnuts from that point on. And the owner actually is planning on taking over some of that effort from the current company that they sell to, but he's only able to do so in a fairly limited capacity because it sort of requires more manpower, and at minimum it would require Alejandro be on site. And then the other sort of part of it is that in order to develop items 2 through 6 for commercial viability, he would also want to have Alejandro on site. So that's essentially it.
Are there any proposals to expand the acreage of the walnut operation, or mostly you're speaking that the owner's interested in expanding items 2 through 6?
He didn't mention that. No, I think the 50 acres is kind of what they plan on continuing with.
Okay, any comments or questions from committee members?
I have a question, and I'm trying to envision this. So maybe you can help me out. I understand the 60 goats could probably be very good for weed abatement and different things. Tell me how he uses the chickens, the cows, the pigs, and the horses in relation to the walnuts.
Well, you essentially describe them as the chickens and the goats as being able to being free to roam. Actually, all of those animals. The horses, they actually use to get around the property. But the other animals, essentially, they roam around the orchard and act as fertilizers, essentially. That's for now. As I mentioned, there is a plan to develop them commercially. develop the produce and the livestock commercially.
Okay, so if they're roaming, then they're locked up at certain times in the 3 acres of the pens and the sheds?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I think if there's an area shown on the parcel plan, the updated parcel plan that shows where that it's kind of in the middle. It's near the two residences.
And the vegetable bed, is that personal use or is that part of it?
Currently, it's personal use, but that's one of the things that would expand.
So in your memo, you've got data that says, so for the Walnut Orchard, the work associated with that occupies 91% of the 2 employees' time. Are you equating that to 91% of a full-time yearly work that an employee
Yeah.
would be? Okay.
Yeah, as far as I understand it, the two of them are, well, I'm not sure if Alejandro's there full time. It's I can find out further.
I guess
You
I
know
just
what?
raised that because, it could be 91% of 100 hours. I mean, you just need to put it into context if you're intending that to describe that, effectively there's enough
Well, in our
work
turn,
for 2 full employees, or that's 90% of 2 full employees would be working on the Walnut Orchard.
yeah, as far as I understand it, they're full time and employees, and as I think in Arturo's case, it's probably more than full time.
Right.
More than say 40 hours or a week, or what one would consider. Well, no, actually, it's 91% of the hours that they are getting paid for through Pacific HR. And I'm pretty sure that represents full-time employment. I'm actually gonna text the owner while we're speaking.
Okay. While you're doing that, any other questions? Matt, do you have
Yeah,
anything?
yeah, one question. On the memo, you mentioned that the owner will be taking on processing and marketing. Is that gonna be doing on-site or off-site? Is there an area where you plan on doing the processing? Any
I,
expansion or
I,
construction?
yeah, I think he plans on doing it on site, and I'm not sure where or how. They've got sort of 2 small barns there that are shown where the existing dwellings are.
Talking about where it says 800 and 2,400 square feet barns?
Yeah, exactly. But those are pretty well spoken for at the moment. So I don't have a lot, really any detail about how they propose to do that, or how he proposes to do that. Okay, the owner did get back to me and he said, yes, indeed, they are both full-time. Alejandro and Arturo.
Okay, thank you. guess just to kind of characterize what, with the information and that at least as information provided from the owner that the two employees, essentially 91% of their full-time work is associated with the primary walnut orchard operation. And that items 2 through 6 supplement it in various ways, but that also kind of longer term, they're seeking to, which isn't necessarily before us today, that they're seeking to expand those in terms of additional agricultural operations on the property. And also with it, I guess if they're going to be doing processing on site, that may just be a future request if they need additional buildings to support that. So, I guess thoughts from committee members on the information that I think one of the questions that we were seeking is there sufficient identified agricultural work on the property to support the eventuality of having 2 ag employee dwellings on the property? Any thoughts from the committee members on that? I mean, I guess I would just add my 2 cents that based on the information provided that 91% of the work at least is primarily for the operation on the walnut orchard. And I think we kind of acknowledged that was the primary use, just visually looking at the property. So I think the information was helpful for me to at least lean in that direction, that there is sufficient ag on the property to support 2 ag employee dwellings.
I agree with that. And also the fact that the operation of and the harvesting of the orchard is being taken over by the owner now. I think that was important for me to, and now, yeah.
I do agree. We haven't, to my knowledge, had many cases of organic farming, and so some of this is a little new, at least to me. And trying to see how the 4 horses support, but I think their explanation, and I'm okay.
I would just note for the record that Alex Ivramovic has arrived at 9:34. No problem. Just in case you wish to vote on this item as we go through. You have any thoughts on this? Okay, on this one, that's fine. All right. Any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
Not seeing any public comment on this.
Thank you. Anybody want to take a stab at a motion? Or, okay, I'll take an attempt. So I'd move that the APAC find the request for the new single-family dwelling, an office building and guest house, including conversion of the existing dwelling to an ag employee dwelling, is consistent with the uniform rules, and that contract 088P21 meets ongoing eligibility requirements.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Matt Mayton.
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Royce Larson.
Aye.
And then Alex, you're recusing, correct? Okay, so vote carries 4-0.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Buckingham.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's move on to continued item number 3. This was Raw Land Development Company Access Road. And I believe Again, this is one that we had continued primarily, provide additional time for the owner to complete and submit the annual Williamson Act questionnaire to the county assessor. Do we have a report on that?
Yes, the questionnaire was completed and submitted at the end of February. Thank you.
And we had previously looked at primary requests in terms of the access road and didn't have any issues identified at that time, but I see Mr. Lloyd, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
I haven't, we have no one in the audience today and no one online wanting to speak on this item.
Okay, thank you. So not seeing any other questions or comments from the committee members. So I will make a motion that we find the proposed access road consistent with the uniform rules, and that contract 77 AP 058 meets ongoing eligibility requirements.
Second?
We'll do a roll call. Matt Mayton.
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex. Royce Larson.
I,
Vote carries 5-0.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Next item is continued item number 4, Slavic Barns. And this item is on our agenda. So a 60-day notice regarding the contract eligibility was sent to the property owner on December 28th, 2023, and then agendized for today's meeting to consider ongoing eligibility of the contract 03 AP 003. And we have that copy of that 60-day notice in our folders for today's hearing. As a just kind of a refresher, I think the principal issue that the committee had identified was that the current non-agricultural envelope exceeded the allowances for the uniform rules. And that was an issue that had been raised and still remained an outstanding issue, and hence the 60-day letter was sent. And I see we have Mr. Jones here, who's the agent for the owner. And I believe Mr. Jones presented some additional information for our agenda today. And so if you'd like to provide any overview or perspective on this agendized issue.
Members of the commission, thank you. I do have additional materials as well. Not being in person for so long, I wasn't sure if I could just bring those up to you to pass along. Basically, it's just showing the envelope, the personal use envelope, which is not fenced, having not changed over the course of the 13 years that the home has been there. And really the issue is that the personal use envelope, basically 1.86 acres, is not fenced, and there's a larger fenced area around, but that it is a cattle operation. The cattle are allowed within this area. There are gates, and Mr. Slavic, who is here, who's going to speak as well, controls that area with electric fencing, as well as with horses, cowboys, and wranglers on horseback inside the area. So effectively, You know, we're not aware that there's a requirement to fence your personal use area in relation to a cattle operation, and feel that basically it's unreasonable to ask Mr. Slavic to spend thousands of dollars to build an additional fence on the inside of, or right around his personal use area. And he's got some other comments that he'd like to make, but I would like to pass along just images, Google Earth images dating back to 2011 and coming forward that you'll see that the personal use area has not grown into the outstanding fenced area. And you'll see some images of cattle. So this image here, the cattle are inside the fenced area and as well as outside. And you know, it's essentially the same. But if I could, can I pass this along? Yeah. I think Mr. Slavic will speak to some of these other photos regarding vegetation management, fire hazard, and concerns there as well.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thanks for having me. If you want to maybe just go through some of the images, perhaps I can add some context to those. The ranch has been threatened, directly threatened by 4 fires: the Gap Fire in 2008, the Sherper Fire in 2016, the Whittier Fire in 2017, the Alisol Fire in 2021. That's a picture of the Alisol Fire just behind our ranch there, taken from the ranch. Additionally, we have a requirement to maintain defensible space around the residence. Pursuant to PRC Code 4291, we have to maintain 100 feet around the residential envelope. And that takes into account all of the fenced area, with exception of one small corner, and areas outside the fence as well. So whether it's grazed or simply tilled, as is a common practice in residential, particularly cattle ranches, where they'll till areas to create a fire break around fences, along highways, and so forth. We haven't done that, but we do graze it, and we do then do mechanical means for anything that's left over that consider to be a fuel source for us. In addition, the fence that's around the property is a 2-purpose fence. That's not the fence around
That's
the
not the
property.
fence.
That's the Gap Fire, and we had 14 bulldozer companies in our pasture, us being the last area that they could defend from on the San Ynez Valley side. And since that episode, in designing the water system to feed the residents, a 6-inch line, it comes from 4,000 feet away. It's commercial grade, municipal grade, along the side of the shipping pens that you see there. I added a fire hydrant just for this purpose. And it was not requested by the county, by county fire at all. It was just something that I decided to add several hundred feet of additional water line so that firefighting efforts in the valley could be supported. The other concern I have with respect to fire safety is the fact that we have a 12,000 volt PG&E power line that runs the length of the ranch, continues over the next ranch, and goes all the way up over the hill towards the Goleta side. That has been the cause of multiple power outages throughout the years, sometimes 6 or so in a year. And the cutoff point for the power at our ranch is not automatic. It's not fused. It's knife blade switches that need to be accessed by a bucket truck. PG&E has to come onto the ranch. They have to manually turn those things off. So that's a time factor that's a concern to me. So I take fire safety very seriously. And that's the reason that the 100 feet outside of this, and I think you have one of those exhibits on there as well. The fire hydrant locations are important. These were something that were done in close work with County Fire and ultimately a requirement to get signed off. What they provide is they provide access to the structure. If there's a fence outside that structure and between the open area, it will cut off crew access back and forth between structure protection and perimeter protection, fire line protection. So it's important that these areas remain open so that they can move freely back and forth and not be obstructed by a fence and trying to climb fences and carry hoses over fences and so forth. So that creates the access points where they can literally drive around the structure and have 360-degree access for protection. In your package, you will see a fire line burn scar. Maybe that's a little further along right there. Now, this is unrelated to our property, but this happens to be a family member's home in Lahaina. And that burn scar came right up to the edge of their property. Behind their property are about 50 homes in a subdivision. That fire was stopped by the use of a private water truck. Fire crews were not available because Lahaina was being burned. So that's the reason that I need to maintain that open space around the home for access for fire and so forth. But it also provides another benefit of the additional outside fence. It provides a benefit of also being a predator control fence. It's not going to stop mountain lions. It's probably not going to stop a bear, but it does stop the coyotes. And we have multiple incidents of direct contact with coyotes and so forth. And the fence will now stop them. So that's an important consideration in a family with 7 grandkids. And, you know, all under the age of 8. In the last 90 days, there have been reports of coyote attacks across the United States. 3 in a park, children playing in a park in Arlington, Texas. 3 in a Phoenix suburb, where in one case, a toddler was taken down in his own driveway while his parents were standing there trying to go back into the house. And there was another adult that was attacked in the Phoenix area. Another 2 in Rhode Island, a jogger, and he was attacked and ultimately just had to deal with a coyote with his bare hands. So that's a serious threat. I've had animals face down by them. I've had where I've been within a stone's throw of them and they did not back off. I take that real seriously too. So these are essential safety factors with respect to the ranch. And when you take into account my 2-acre envelope allowance, I'm utilizing, all the rest being an ag, I'm utilizing 99.7% of my land. And I don't know how to go any further. I'm happy to answer questions. I have a number of other things that I've written down here, but I think I've covered most of the basics.
I'll try to share my screen just to show the most recent Google Earth photo that I have some questions on. Teresa, can you enable? Oh, so this was from 2023. And so I guess it was just kind of just the stark distinction between the green pastures area outside of the fenced area and that the area between the fencing and the home site cleared. And so maybe you can describe, you said that this area is grazed and the ranch managers or utilize a combination of electric fencing and horses to control them, how long are, one, where do they access from into this area? And then how long are they on that property grazing?
It's a function of, the access point is in that lower westernmost corner. So to the opposite side of the fenced area, so.
Sorry, up in this area or farther?
No. Well, there's one gate back there, but we don't use that. So follow that fence line to that corner.
So right there.
Yes, there are two gates, and someplace in my package, there's also pictures of those gates, pictures of the cattle inside and the people on horseback.
Oh, yeah.
And additionally, I'm going to pass these up because these were taken. These were taken in the last 10 days. And one of those will show the gates into the pasture area. Timing can be an issue with respect to when things need to be cleared, because we are running up to maximum we've run is 550 head of cattle. And we share those cattle with 3,000 acres, and sometimes an additional 600 acres to that. But timing can be an issue because they're shipped into this ranch because this ranch has the shipping pens. They're shipped into this ranch. They're allowed to graze for the initial period from the first of the year through about late February. In many cases, new grass hasn't come up yet in quantity. So then they're moved off to the larger ranch where they find grass. They stay there until late spring and come back. But what we run into is we run into some timing issues sometimes with various pastures, that some get overgrazed if we're running too many, some get undergrazed depending upon the timing of when the cattle have been sold and are contracted to ship. So you can't always time when you need to take care of the fire abatement issues. Very often, the timing is such that cattle are coming back late, they're being shipped out in 30 days, and we have grass that's been overgrown. And the other issue with having grass overgrown is it obscures coyotes should they find a void. So yeah, that shows a year when, I don't know what year that is.
That was last year, 2023.
2023, okay. We had, as you know, we had a lot of rain that year, so the grass was very, very high. Got a lot of rain so far, and the grass is also very, very high. So it can just depend on the timing of all the events that are taken into account. But I think what's very important to say is that when you have 99.7% of your ranch in ag use, that whether any of this is ever grazed is not going to change one animal unit on the ranch. So that's all market driven. That's all weather driven. So there's nothing that would change as a result of the ag use one way or the other, depending upon whether we have to use mechanical means early or mechanical means late. But there's always a need for making sure that the area is ultimately cleared before fires. Do you know the date that this was taken?
Yeah, let me check.
This April.
Yeah, and
It's
we generally ship between anywhere from early May to mid-June is when the cattle are moved off the farm. So sometimes, the work just has to get done.
Is it a normal practice to try to get the cattle on this area first?
Not generally, because the grass usually, as you saw in the photos with the cattle inside the fence, you could see the grass on both sides of the fence was relatively limited. So it wouldn't serve much purpose for the time involved to do it. But, certainly accessible certainly used. And it's important to note that the actual residential envelope, when you take out the incoming road, which is a continuation of a ranch road that goes up to our upper side of our ranch, the actual used area, personal use space, is only 1.5 acres. And you take out the ranch road, we're really only talking about 0.9 acres that's remaining that be considered necessary for ag use. But I don't know that there's any expectation that a ranch have more than 9. The only references to quantities of ag use that I see are 50 acres or 50%, whichever is less prime. But I've also seen references that they say that a minimum ag use would be 4.7 acres. So I think I'm approaching this thing in very good faith. The safety of the ranch is paramount. Safety of the family is paramount. Safety of our workers. And I'm actually in the process of trying to acquire a water truck to provide the kind of protection that you saw in the so I'm just respectfully requesting that you take a look at the reasons for this. The other component that comes into play here is that because it is very close to the shipping pens, we don't have an area for the cattle crew to rest their horses and water their horses and so forth, other than themselves. And it's a long-standing tradition to, at the end of a season, to have them come up after the cattle are shipped and give them a meal and enjoy some time together. And they can simply just turn their horses out on this and let them graze freely. They can't do any damage, and they can keep an eye on them while we're enjoying.
I appreciate that information. So maybe just so my understanding, because I'm just trying to understand this visual, is that it also looks like, and you had mentioned mechanical clearing as well, and you can see tracks through here. And so would this been mechanical clearing after the cattle had been on this property for this season? Or was this just early season mechanical clearing?
No, this is not early season. This would be towards the end of the season.
I'm just trying, this photo is from April. I mean, so that, I think that's.
So
right.
shipping, I don't remember the exact shipping date last year, but shipping goes from anywhere from the first week of May. The latest we've done is probably middle of. But when the cattle are coming back onto the ranch here, they're being congregated in areas close to the shipping pens. So there's a 15-acre pasture below the house. There's a gate also at that corner that I mentioned where the gates are. It opens up to the whole southern portion of the ranch. So cattle can be moved through here, but they're generally congregated down close to the driveway area, the beginning of that, the shipping pens, and both sides. There's a 40-acre pasture that connects directly to the north side of the shipping pens, and a 12-acre pasture, I think it is.
And then one last question. So you had mentioned also combination of use of electric fencing. And so my thought is, well, I guess maybe you can describe how is the electric fencing used within that permanent fenced area?
Yeah, electric fencing is used throughout the operation, generally at the time of shipping where we want to congregate them into the 12-acre pasture, but keep them there and not have them wander off into further areas. Electric fencing is something that we can set up 1,000 feet of electric fence in a day, and it's the second most effective fence we have on the ranch. The first being a steel pipe fence. But barbed wire fence is not nearly as effective. We've had over 30 head out this year from barbed wire fence. So electric fence is very valuable to us because it doesn't create an impediment to any kind of fire safety. It can be laid down. But the reality is with people on horseback or even people on foot, you can move these cattle. We buy gentle cattle, except one year we did buy gentle cattle that you can actually work on foot. And I've actually moved cattle up that pasture and out the gate with the use of a personal drone. So they're very easy to move around. You could sit there with a lawn chair and a cup of coffee and a book and just watch it. So it's really not as hard as it seems. And that's the reason that I haven't put any kind of permanent fencing.
My thought was, would you have been using electric fencing on the very perimeter of what is the home site proper, just to keep the cattle potentially from wandering into that area while they're grazing? Or
If you wanted to take the easy route and just be hands off on their management, then yeah, electric fencing is very effective for that. And again, it's so effective that I had 740 linear feet of steel fence panels that go together like an erector set. I recently donated those to the equestrian center up the road, their event, because the electric fence is more manageable and much more effective.
And then looks like there's a gate on the access road here. Is there also a gate at this point of the fence line?
Though there's just a cattle guard where you're pointing to
Okay,
right
so that's
now.
just on the road to cattle.
Right, a cattle guard, and there's no gate at the top presently,
Okay.
just some walls.
I'll let the other committee members have any questions or.
Is it and forgive me, Mr. Slavic, once again, those cattle are inside around your house on a yearly basis? Is that correct?
They can be there whenever we deem it's necessary to do so. You know, there are times when any place on the ranch, we let pastures rest or we use them. But they move off the ranch fairly quickly in the early part of the season. And then when they're coming back, we're trying to move them around to catch all the pastures so we don't leave big exposure for fire on large pastures. So it's not a priority item for us. I'm not going to lie to you. But it's very clear from the uniform rules that the residential envelope is defined as those areas where there are structures. And there's not a footpath, there's not a stepping stone, there's not a sprinkler, there's nothing outside my 1.5 feet. You know, it remains as an ag use, and it remains as a fire safety as well. Fire safety use being a prominent issue.
So the fire issue, I completely understand. And in today's world with some people can't even get insurance.
I've been canceled twice now. I'm on my last.
And so I fully understand that issue. But again, we're grappling with the rules which say you can't restrict ag inside your 2 acres. So the question is on a even one day a year, are those cattle in there grazing?
Yeah, that's easy.
Okay.
You have photos of it.
Yeah.
Photos of it. And again, the fire safety and the other benefit of having that exterior fence where it's located and the fact that it is coyote proof is, you know, the coyotes help out the ranch. They take care of squirrel populations. I'm only going to give them a C grade at this point. They're not doing their job fully as I had asked them to do. But in many ranching operations, a coyote is considered a threat and it's a shoot on site situation. We don't allow any hunting on the ranch, and we're preserving the ranch in total. So not only do the coyotes keep the squirrel populations under control, the remaining squirrels give the raptors something to do. It's kind of a global situation where I'm actually fairly proud of the fact that we can work and live side by side with nature, not work against nature. So, and the placement of the fence was fortuitous because if a coyote comes in through a gap at a gate, for example, they tend to run the fence looking for a way out. And so that keeps them away from the yard and, keeps animals. So it's a very effective program. And I think I'm doing a good job. Again, I look at the degree of land that's, inactive here, percentage basis, and it's probably hard to find in other operations, that percentage, 99%. So I'm just, looking for some cooperation to be able to continue to keep the ranch safe, keep things up and running, do what I do. If I were taken out of ag, then is the next owner going to worry about those things? Is the next owner going to worry about whether the ranch just gets brushed up and becomes Rancho Inferno? I don't know. I can't guess, but that's not what happened.
Just a follow-up question, Mr. Slavik. So for this area here, I think you had mentioned that this road is also used as a through access road to other parts of the ranch, but it doesn't look like there's much road access activity continuing kind of south from that point.
Yeah.
How is this used?
If you follow the fence line down, there you see the road cut.
Down here?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
That's the road cut. There are several roads, well, there's 2 roads that lead up that way. But this one actually used to be maintained by County Fire at one time. That road continues up to another road that rides along the spine of the ranch. At the top of that road, there's a large water trough, cattle water trough. Up on the hill that's off to the side of that photo, there is a 10,000-gallon cistern that supplies water to the ag water trough. So the needs to get up there continue. But you can see that cistern right there as kind of a white spot near the other road. So it's just another area for ag use, for convenience, and also for fire control as well. The gates that lead out are, I believe, 14 feet, so that fire crews can go out that way as well.
Mr. Chair, if I could maybe make a comment and sort of a question too. So it appears we can't see like the ruts you would expect in a road, but I've seen ranches where they keep it that way, grassed over, and they just mow it for the summer for passage. Is that what you do on that, or?
Those, we just allow that to be free grazed.
Okay.
On occasion, we have to clear just because of down limbs and so forth. So occasionally it'll get re-scraped, but that's not an annual event.
Matt, any comments, thoughts? And I do appreciate all the information you did provide, Mr. Slavik. And just to put it into context, for non-prime contracts that are primarily grazing, you're correct, there aren't any in the uniform rules, any production requirements. And what the focus of this 60-day notice was really our uniform rules, which limit to the maximum 2 acres for the personal uses, the non-agricultural uses. And so it's not just structural, which would be in that envelope, it's any areas that are for personal use. So it could be outdoor landscaping, pools, detached garage, any of that. And so certainly your surrounding landscape, formal landscaping would be counting towards that. And as far as the issue of fencing, it has come up many times on properties. And the primary issue is that fencing that's effectively creating an envelope greater than 2 acres that would exclude, in most cases where we encounter it, that it would exclude cattle from accessing that area. So that's the principal. The commercial ag production is the principal qualifying component that, the landowner needs to meet. So I think that was obviously just visually and measuring what we perceived the boundaries of that fenced area clearly exceeded the 2 acres. I think the information that you provided, and also, I mean, that was one of the questions, because just looking at the layout, we couldn't determine where there were gates and fencing where the cattle could be brought into that area outside of, would be inefficient if they were just coming down the main access road and then into that area. But obviously, that's not how it functions. You do have fencing that can bring in the cattle to that area. And completely understand and support the issues related to fire safety. I think that's not really our focus, in terms of how you're managing this area, which, but I think the information that you have stated and shown is that this area is available to the cattle to be grazed. And from the photos and everything, it doesn't look like that area, there has been advancement of personal use into that area. So I think that's another factor. So I'm not sure how the other committee members feel. I mean, obviously, just the perimeter of what looks like the fencing, but I think there's information that our primary concern is that fencing that would preclude that area being available for commercial ag production, the cattle grazing, has not been the case. And so, particularly Royce, I'd like to get your perspective if you kind of concur that that's kind of a legitimate management area and they do have the ability to access that on a regular basis.
I do concur with that, and the fire risk is growing so much. And I applaud him. He's got a way to control that right around his house, but yet he does allow the cattle to come in and graze it. So a dual use, if you will, but it's not personal use in my opinion. Protection.
Yeah, and where we have, certainly that 100-foot clearance of vegetation clearance would be a fire department requirement when the house comes in. Similarly, when we see fire department requirements to install a turnout or something associated with this new residence, we count that turnout as part of the non-agricultural envelope because it wouldn't be required or wouldn't occur unless it was associated with the principal dwelling use. You could take that perspective of the same thing with the 100-acre fuel clearance, is that there wouldn't be a need for that 100-acre fuel clearance if there wasn't the residence there, and so it's part of that. But that's why I say I think it's a secondary issue because our main area issue is that area just being precluded from access for grazing, and I think you've demonstrated that that's not the case. So is there any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
Just to clarify the item that we're looking at today, this is only for the eligibility issues, not as the item suggests that maybe the proposal to demolish the existing arena and the workshop. All these items are not part of what we're looking at today. Is that correct, Mr. Chair?
Correct. And while I understand there's been different occurrences since our committee previously viewed that request that was associated with the land use permit, I we had bifurcated the action. We had taken action and determined that the previous request was consistent with uniform rules, but we had concerns about the ongoing eligibility with the envelope, and that set up the, stepwise setting out the 60-day notice and everything. So you're correct. Today, we're just considering the ongoing eligibility based on the 60-day notice letter that we sent to the property owner.
Thank you.
If you're online and wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand for public comment. I'm not seeing any raised hands online and no one in the audience, so no public comment.
Okay, thank you. I can try a motion if that, anybody else, you're okay with that?
Complicated one, because, yeah,
Right.
exclude some of the stuff.
You good, Matt? Any other questions? Okay. So I would say that the APAC has considered ongoing eligibility of contract 03 AP 003, and based on information provided for today's meeting regarding the grazing within the fenced area, and that it is accessible on a regular basis for the cattle operation, that the APAC finds that contract 03 AP 003 meets ongoing eligibility requirements.
I will second.
A motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Matt Ayton.
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex. Royce Larson.
Aye.
Vote carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, and just for the minutes, do we want to strike all the items so that the minutes show that the item, that it was only on consistency?
Or would it just be the motion that would specify that?
Council, do you have any suggestion on? Do we need to clarify in our motion how our motion was only on the ongoing eligibility portion of what was agendized?
Yeah, just for clarity.
Okay. So I will amend my motion to add that to the minutes to clarify that the APAC's motion was focused on the agendized consideration of ongoing eligibility of the contract.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're done with the continued items. So move into new items number 5, Barrick new single-family dwelling. Again, this is Brett Jones, agent for the owner, Thomas J. Barrick, and then also Soren Kringle is the planner. Not sure if Soren is here online. Teresa, is that?
I am online.
Okay. So yeah, maybe Soren, maybe if you want to give kind of a quick overview of the project, and then Mr. Jones can add any additional information and context.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, so this is a request for a land use permit to allow the construction of a 4,549 square foot single family dwelling, 725 square feet of decks, and an 852 square foot terrace. This will be located on a vacant lot. The vacant lot's part of the Rancho Saguaro tract, which is a track map off of Happy Canyon Road. The project will also include an 888 square foot detached garage, an 800 square foot pool and associated pool equipment, Estimated grading right now is at 500 cubic yards of cut, 400 cubic yards of fill. That's for just the house and the associated accessory structures. Grading for the proposed driveway to access the house is expected to be 900 cubic yards of cut, 100 cubic yards of fill. No trees are proposed for removal. The parcel will be served by a private on-site water system. Or I think there's actually a water company that serves all the parcels in this tract. There'll be a private on-site septic system. AgriServe contract is 86 AP12, which was shown in the Ag supplemental application. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm sure Brett can dive deeper into all the ag operations out at the site, so I'll turn it over to him.
Yeah, have a great day.
Thank you, Soren. Mr. Chair and commission members, you may recall last year we were in front of you for a very similar home to the south of this parcel. And multiple parcels in this tract are owned by the same family. And it turns out that southern parcel, there was going to be a lot of infrastructure work that needed to be done in terms of the roads. So they have changed and we've moved to this parcel. Again, that south parcel was oat hay, and this parcel is also farmed with 17 acres of oat hay. And you've probably seen this over the years. I haven't been the agent on it, but they do a yearly polo festival, or whatever you want to call it, event on site. So they do have more than 20 acres of irrigated pasture, and you'll see a couple of 4 pastures there in kind of the middle and the left of our personal use area. And wasn't really sure how to characterize that because there are no permanent facilities. So in terms of the polo, I guess it could be looked at in terms of an incidental boarding operation. But there are no permanent facilities, so I think we meet that requirement. We actually, Jeremy Roberts is here as well, the architect, and we put on there principal boarding and breeding for another primary ag use, which maybe isn't actually the case because they're not there all the time doing the polo. It is quite frankly incidental. So we do have our 2-acre envelope on there. The driveway will be dual use because it will be continue to be farmed on each side. And I think that's it. Jeremy, you want to add anything?
My name's Jeremy Roberts. I'm the architect. I'm here to answer any questions you might have about the architecture, or kind of how we've placed it on the site, or what we're doing. So, thank you.
Teresa, could you maybe zoom into the red area for the envelope a little bit? That's good. Thank you. So Brett, the area in red, is that what constitutes 2 acres? Or is that?
That's correct.
But sort of the area that's to the north, it doesn't have anything, are you trying to just prospectively identify a 2-acre envelope versus just identifying what your current envelope acreage is?
The 4 pastures to the left, is that what you mean?
Well, yeah, so where you have the road and kind of the turnout, and then below that is the house.
Oh, gotcha.
Everything to the north of that turnout, there's no structures, but you're saying that's part of what you're calculating as an envelope. And
that's correct.
Yeah, so I guess we don't kind of prospectively identify a 2-acre envelope. We look to just confirm that where your structural development, what you're proposing to be personal use, is within that calculation. And so that would probably be a recommendation, at least, since you're not
Proposing
development on that. I wouldn't show that area as part of your envelope.
Unless correct me if I'm wrong, unless they're planning on fencing all that area and maybe just keeping it as a personal use kind of area.
See if we're not developing.
I was just showing an actual contiguous 2 acre envelope within the 100 acre parcel. There is potential for a future guest house or maybe ADU for the family, but I wanted to show where the area we were thinking, for that to occur. You'll see that the area that's dry farmed with oat hay and the 4 pastures, to the left there, that's all surrounded by a paved road. There's an asphalt paved road that actually, sort of, borders both the north and the west part, sort of area of those pastures. So it was, it seemed to make sense to me to go north of the house with that expanded 2 acre area, even though we're not currently proposing to develop it. We don't intend to fence it. And honestly, they will probably continue to farm through there. But I wanted to show 2 acres instead of an acre and then come back later and say, oh, by the way, here's the other acre. So that was the reason.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, and I guess I was just saying that it's not like a planning and development envelope where you're identifying, okay, this is your general area that we've analyzed for environmental review. If you're not currently calculating that, or you don't have any structures in that area, I would just recommend revising on your site plan just to show, to exclude that area, and then just revise your calculation that it's, the actual new red area is just 1 point whatever acres. Because we don't prospectively identify a envelope that for the future.
So just so I'm clear, because I'm slow getting there. If they did want to come back later and put a guest house in, we would then come back and say, this is this constitutes the 2 acre.
Correct. Yeah, at that future time, you would just recalculate that based on what your existing development is and what you're proposing. I did have a question just in terms of why was the access road chosen to come in from west rather than from the north from that road?
Directly north of the house where that 2 acre envelope
Uh-huh.
sort of extends now, there's employee housing on another parcel that is, so instead of arriving at the house and leaving the house and kind of coming to the cottages that are there, we elected to kind of make it more of a private entrance to the house, which was the driveway to the west side. So it was more of an aesthetic decision on kind of how you approach the house, than, we could have come off that upper paved road, but we elected to come off of the paved road to the west. There's a gate actually in the fencing there that encompasses that pasture land already. So we were just going to use the existing gate and put a gravel drive in.
Yeah, I guess part of that question, maybe you can answer it, is that just because where that road's, that green hatched area, it creates this minor, small area that doesn't seem to be practical or may create challenges for farming that little strip between that concrete road and then the new access road there. Right. So that was, south of the pastures.
Yeah, the area south of the pastures, there's a little fenced area for the horses to be able to, I guess, be secured from the pasture. We could push the driveway a little further north so that little finger of farmed area would actually be south of the road and not, we just wouldn't be there. I could swing the driveway a little further north. That would make sense.
I think that would be best because again, we're looking at the least amount of ag area being taken for the development. That would be my opinion.
So what are the 2 structures under the house? There's like the little white box and then there's the dotted lines. What is that going to be used for?
That's the swimming pool directly below the house. That's the swimming pool, yes. And then that is the area for the septic field, the dispersion field for the septic system. And you can see to the right of the house right there, that's the actual septic tank. And the line runs down. So I'm just trying to show the development that's gonna occur within this 2-acre envelope.
Have another question on your driveway. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Is it a dual use driveway, meaning that you're using that to get into the field too?
Yes, sir.
Or strictly for the house?
Yes, sir, dual use. It's gonna be just a gravel road, fire department compliant, but it's gonna be a ranch road. We're not gonna pave it or make it something.
And Brett, I had a question for you just to clarify. So is the request that this be considered a principal animal and boarding breeding operation in terms of if we evaluate the extent of the corrals and the irrigated pasture, or is it incidental?
Yeah,
Right now you have 2 acres for leasing and boarding, and I wasn't sure, was that just to say that that would be our equivalent incidental animal boarding and breeding envelope?
Yeah, Jeremy and I really started thinking that it was principal, but as I started really studying this and understanding better how they use the property, it's not a daily boarding operation or training for polo. It's intermittent and incidental. So understanding that we don't have permanent facilities, no structures, anything like that, I think it could fall under the incidental rather than principal.
And then another question, you're kind of using, but you provide acreage of irrigated pasture and irrigated farmed area. So the irrigated farmed area, what is the commodity?
Yeah, I think it's actually oat hay, so I don't think it's irrigated.
Okay.
I think it's oat hay, which is what they're doing to the south and on some of the adjacent parcels as well.
Yeah, I thought it was alfalfa, but if it was irrigated, but so it's just oat hay. Okay. I do have a contract question, but if there's any other questions as far as from the committee members on what's being proposed or the ag. So my question is trying to straighten out the contract history on this property. At one point, I think there had considered to be going through non-renewal because there was concerns, and then 2021 there was on our agenda proposal for a new contract, 20 AGP 03, that the committee did take action to approve, but it's still being referenced as 86 AP 012. Do you know anything about that, Brett?
In fact, Mr. Chair, I do still show this contract as in non-renewal. And I don't see it with the new contract number.
That
Under this parcel, it's still currently in non-renewal. I don't know if the new contract ever recorded actually.
Okay, so that's something that needs to, so Soren, I don't know if you had heard that, so on our meeting of September 10th, 2021, there was an item that we did take action to find that the proposal for a new ag preserve contract, and that was case number 20 AGP 03. And then Adam Orta was the planner at that time. So maybe you could, Soren, if you could follow up with Adam or try to track down whether or not that contract had ever been taken to the board for approval and recorded.
Certainly, yeah. Just it's 20 AGP 23.
03.
03, got it. Okay. Yeah, I'll follow up with Adam. see
Okay,
what the status is.
thank you.
Give me 1 minute, 1 second. Let me check. So did you say contract 20?
20 AGP, well, this was, so it's probably AP
Mhm.
03.
Three.
I thought that was sort of the new convention that
That is the compare.
that we would take the case number and that would become the new contract.
Yeah, and no, I don't show that contract number under my AgPreserve system, so.
Right. Okay.
And I can do a quick grantor grantee check.
Because certainly that, obviously, if we're showing it in our records as in non-renewal, it's affecting the landowner's valuation. And so if, I don't know, at some point either there, it looks like it hasn't been recorded. So that needs to be resolved.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, or Commission, are you able to tell whether that was owner initiated non-renewal? Any recollection?
Kind of think that it
That
was.
one was not owner
I
requested.
think it was, we
That was board requested. That was not owner requested.
Correct,
correct.
correct. The
Yeah.
county initiated.
Okay, county initiated.
And there's a connection in this room to that previous contract that I noticed in the minutes. So, yeah, I mean, I think we may have noticed it when the polo application for the event came in and we were looking at ongoing eligibility and we couldn't, what's the ag here? And so
Gotcha.
that raised the issue. And I think we may have sent a notice to a peer or something. And then they followed up at some point with an application for
Gotcha.
a new contract.
I think if I'm not mistaken, the oat hay farming is relatively new. The last couple of years.
That could have
Just
been.
add some more context. I looked at the case in our system and it looks like it was transferred and then just kind of almost just no one has, there's no activity on the case since 2022. So I'll probably just take over that case and try to get that processed.
Okay, yeah.
That's what
So
I'm thinking.
Brett, if you can coordinate with Soren, because that is obviously of the landowner's interest to get that completed.
Will do.
Yeah, and I just checked the grantor grantee. Nothing has been recorded. There's no contract with 2003.
So any other comments, questions, committee members? Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
If you're online and wish to speak on an item, please raise your hand. Not seeing any public comment and no one in the audience.
Okay, thank you. So I will make a motion that the committee find the request for a new single-family dwelling consistent with the uniform rules, contingent upon verification by the planner that the site map is revised to reflect a revised non-ag envelope as discussed today, including road access alignment, a revised road access alignment. And that the contract 86 AP 012 meets ongoing eligibility requirements. Do we have a second? Thank you, Matt. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Matt Mayton,
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo, David Lackey,
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
Royce Larson,
Aye.
and then vote carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. You. I'll just check. Everybody good? Anybody need a break? 5-minute break? Everybody good? Okay. We will power on. Next item, item number 6, 3350 Foothill Road LLC, ADU. Veronica King is the planner. I'm not sure if Veronica is here or if the owner or agent is here.
That's the That's the applicant, I believe so. I just promoted him.
Okay.
You can go ahead and.
Jeremy,
unmute
yeah.
yourself, sir.
Oh, hello.
Hello?
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. So yeah, maybe you can state your name. I believe you're the owner? Is
The
that
owner,
correct?
Jeremy Norris.
Okay, great. Did you give an overview of what the application request is?
So we are proposing the construction of an ADU within 100 feet or about that of our existing single-family home for our ag purposes and for ranch management.
Mr. Norris, I was noticing just on the aerial photo that, I mean, is this an existing structure that you're seeking to get permitted? There looks like there's an additional structure at the end of that road on the aerial photo. Is that the same building?
No, that's a small studio that's up there.
Okay.
So this is a dead end road that goes on the ranch here that it gets really steep and then drops off the side of the edge. And per past experience, I know that you wanted to see any new construction to be within a short building envelope. So we chose this location for that purpose.
So I'm going to try to look at Google Earth here, but if any committee members have additional questions, please. Yep. So, well, I'm going to bring up the area photo here in a minute, but
Mhm.
as I was looking in kind of the past minutes, because this property rang a bell and I confirmed that, and I handed out to all the committee members minutes from, right, so the minutes from November 6, 2020. This property, this contract 03AP14 was on the agenda, and the committee had recommended that the board non-renew this contract at that time.
Okay.
And that was for non-compliance with Uniform Rules 1-2.3B, which is the commercial ag production requirement. And since this is a 15-acre property, it would qualify under the non-prime, or excuse me, the super prime production rules. And for a 15-acre property, the minimum planted commercial production would be 7 acres.
Which wouldn't be possible on this property. We're surrounded by chaparral and extremely steep slopes.
Understood. And then I think as stated in your application today, I think you said you have 3 acres planted.
Correct.
So for the committee, I'm just making them aware of that we had reviewed this and taken a motion to recommend that the contract be non-renewed. I don't know why it was never processed with your planning and development. That's going to be something that I need to follow up with. But I think the same circumstances exist today that there was concern of why it was non-renewed. That I think we can pursue on a separate pathway, and we may need to continue it, that ongoing eligibility discussion, just till we get more information on how we proceed, whether or not we can just rely upon, and that would be probably a question for council towards the end of how we deal with this, whether or not we can rely upon that previous motion and then just work with planning and development to see why it was never moved forward, and then if it can still continue and restart and go to the board, or do we need to reaffirm that motion from 4 years ago.
Okay.
So that's just some background and context. I don't know if Sergio, if you had any other information on the,
I don't know why it wasn't recorded, the non-renewal.
I don't even know if it went to the board, so it may have, that's why I need to check with planning and development
Right.
to see if it could have been one of those case transfer things that just got lost and dropped and.
Yeah, fell through the cracks.
Right.
In my opinion, the ongoing eligibility has been already decided on by this committee. I think even if it was under non-renewal today, we would only be looking at still following the rules, the issue. And so to me, in my opinion, probably we just need to look at, well, we need to follow up on the non-renewal issue for sure. But I think we need to look at the building envelope under the rules, because the contract still needs to follow the uniform rules. And I believe for this super prime contract, the allowance is only 15,000 square feet. So I think that's what we need to look at, 1,500.
It's actually just the 10,000 because they would get the additional if they had additional planted acreage, and they're not even meeting the minimum.
That's
planted
true.
acreage. So it would be, which I think that was an issue too, which is my very rough calculation. It looks like they're already exceeding the
Exceeding the
10,000.
10,000
square feet.
minimum.
So, so Mr. Norris, this was, when I looked at this aerial photo previously, so this was the building and you said that was just an existing guest house?
It's not a guest house. It's only a studio, like 10 by 12.
Okay. And then presumably, I was just trying to kind of get a reference of where the ADU is. The ADU going to be along that road, kind of in between the two structures? or-
Correct. Yeah, closer to the residence, but right a little bit left of where you have the hand there.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. And then maybe just to clarify kind of some of the activity in around the principal dwelling. So you've got this sort of lawn area, and then right below that, it looks like there's some plantings. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, that is planting of pitaya, avocados, and then it's a fenced orchard for citrus and other things the deer like.
As a distraction.
Yeah.
Is any of that going into sort of wholesale commercial markets, or is it?
It is. The pitaya is sold, and we
Okay.
sell both the plants and the fruit from that.
And then this building here, kind of to the lower
It's
corner?
not a building, it's just an awning over a deck.
Okay.
Yep.
The long term, I mean, looking at least the areas that do have some planting, the plantings, it looks like this is fairly new planting. Do you have an overall plan to kind of?
We've planted
Plant
quite a
some-
bit of where you are dragging in right there. That's filled out quite a bit since this photo was taken. And then there are other trees that have been added there, as well as more pitaya in that area.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the committee members?
No?
So you said, so this is it's a 15-acre parcel? It's
Yes.
15 acres, okay.
Yeah, and the property boundary line, it's hard to tell from this photo, but you can see where he had the hand, the proposed ADU area. There's a propane tank. Right in front of that is the property line for the adjacent property. So most of the property goes up the hill behind us and then down the canyon on the right side, looking at the screen. All of that is planted with avocado as well, and it goes behind into the chaparral.
Yeah, so you'll kind of see that, this is the 15-acre parcel, so
Correct.
it's kind of a really odd, I mean, quite frankly, I'm not sure why a contract was ever approved for this property.
I think it was part of a larger contract.
That might be a
at some
remnant.
point, and then it was, it was divided. And,
And we inherited it that way, yeah.
Right.
yeah,
So you have 3 acres of avocados. What's the other ag use?
We're growing pitaya up here, or dragon fruit. Seems to do really well and works with the avocados.
Not that it makes much difference, but have we received a Williamson Act questionnaire on this property?
yes, we have.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes, we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. That's one of our ongoing challenges, but so we thank you for your response.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so going back to, I guess, we know there are peripheral issues, but I think I agree with Sergio, kind of, even if this was under non-renewal today, we would still be just looking at the request for the ADU. So any other comments, questions, Royce?
Question, can you explain to me what an ADU is?
Yes.
Accessory dwelling unit.
Right.
Is that for an employee, for rent, for?
It can be for, yeah, it's not it could be an ag employee, but it's not considered. It can be for just rental or family members. So those are allowed under our uniform rules. What our uniform rules do speak to is that it has to be within the non-ag development envelope. It can't be remotely sited.
Okay. And the place we're looking at as siting it is remotely sited.
Yeah, it all depends how you stretch an ag development envelope. I think that was, I think one of the other issues is that just you looked at, just a rough calculation of kind of this area and then stretching out to include this photo obviously doesn't show the share this. Google Earth photo, yeah. So again, the ADU would be generally in this location. You've got, something that should be in the non-ag development envelope here. So you'd kind of have to draw, almost like a barbell to incorporate that. I think it's one of those issues that would also align with the ongoing eligibility, not just, I think they currently have, some concerns about the envelope and the planted acreage. And I think as Sergio had said, if those were reasons and they were already in non-renewal and those things weren't going to change, we kind of have to look at the use on its own and whether or not we would still find it, or is it's not furthering any, they're not taking ag land out of production, or there isn't any, larger concern that would make it sort of more non-conforming. I think that's kind of how we would take a look at it.
Is it technically non-renewal or?
No, that was what I had brought up because we had taken action back in 2020. Don't know what happened. I think it just got lost in somewhere in P&D, and so we want to follow up on that. But I think, like we mentioned, just looking at it, if we were looking at it today, I think we would raise those same issues in terms of the commercial ag production requirement not meeting the minimum for super prime, as well as the envelope acreage. Right. I mean, the other, kind of the other issue is that, I don't know if it's an issue. The ADUs with changes in state law, they're just allowed with a building permit. They're not allowed with a land use permit. And so But because it's occurring on ag preserve contract and kind of, we still have the ability to look at that. But it's not going to be something that's sort of a discretionary permit or anything. It's really just a building permit that they would seek approval for. Sergio or Matt, any other comments, questions? So just, to tip my hand, I mean, I think the other issues are the issues that are more concerned that we need to follow up on. Obviously, the ADU isn't extreme or extremely located. It's just a function of, I think, property challenges. I probably would lean to make a motion that we find the ADU consistent. But I'll table that just as a commentary. I guess maybe just to also so we can understand, and maybe I'll ask our county council. So provided the minutes from the 2020 meeting where the committee had made a motion to recommend that the board consider non-renewing this contract, and that appears not to have occurred. Would you recommend that part of our agendized motion is always to consider ongoing eligibility, is that we bifurcate this motion, take one motion on the ADU application, and maybe make a motion on the ongoing eligibility to continue that so that we can find more information of why this motion from APAC did not move forward, and then maybe at that point we have additional input from council on the best pathway forward, whether or not we rely on the previous motion or if we need to kind of restart it.
I think that's the best answer. I mean, best case scenario, it's still got 10 years in non-renewal, so you'd still be considering this if it's in compliance currently while the non-renewal is ongoing. If it is not in non-renewal because it wasn't recorded, we can go back and figure that out. But if it is, we'd still be considering this the same way. So consider the ADU separately and then have a separate motion or part of that motion to go back and figure out if it got recorded, what happened in that 2020 non-renewal.
Okay, I think that's helpful. So I think I'll try to do a motion that we bifurcate it that way, but wanted to check if there's anyone that would like to speak on this item.
Okay. You're online and wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand. Not seeing any public speaker for this item.
Okay. So I guess the first motion would be to bifurcate the motion to consider the ADU separately from ongoing eligibility. Do we have a second on that?
Second?
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Matt Maiden.
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex and Royce Larson.
Aye.
The vote carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Then second motion would be to find that the request for a detached accessory dwelling unit is consistent with the uniform rules.
Did we establish that it's under the 10,000 square feet?
Well, my motion is partly couched on my comments earlier that I think that issue and the commercial ag production are still the primary issues of concern for the property that are related to our previous motion. And so at least my motion is that the ADU itself is consistent, however you want to characterize that.
So if I could ask a question about it. If we were to approve that ADU today, but then came back later and said it's not eligible because it doesn't meet that 10,000 square feet or whatever, is that an issue we need to be concerned about?
So I think that's a fair question. We had kind of talked about how would we view this if it truly was in non-renewal at this point in time. And we often encounter that where we get applications for uses while a contract is in non-renewal, and we have to evaluate those.
I do have a question regarding the 10,000 square feet. I mean, the house.
We
that-
can, Ms. Norris, yeah, we can get to that in a minute, just because
Okay.
we've got a motion right now. We're talking about the question. And so I guess the committee kind of just has to evaluate whether or not that new requested use is potentially, one consideration that I think the committee has done in the past is whether or not that use is further exacerbating the issues that had brought it into non-renewal, or if it's something that you can't resolve the issue of the exceedance of the envelope, but this doesn't necessarily further create problems or take land out of ag production. And so I think that was my rationale of my motion. But I think it's a valid question. We don't have clear guidance. So yeah, the motion was just to consider the request for the accessory dwelling unit consistent with the uniform rules. So do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Matt Mayton,
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo,
No.
David Lackey,
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
Royce Larson,
Aye.
vote carries 4-1.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I need to explain. I just think that
You don't have to. You can if you want.
In my mind, I think the 10,000 square feet is what kind of sticks out and just makes me a little uncomfortable. That's all. Thank you.
Can I comment on that side of it?
Yes, Ms. Norris.
The house that we constructed, the single family residence here is 1488, and then there's some deck space in front of it. So if you look at the picture that we were at, I don't think that we're really even with the house and the deck in front of it exceeding more than 2,500 square feet. Any of the other things that are outside of ag are not anything that we really developed. I guess you would count the lawn area in front of it. And if that's true, then that would be consistent with still everything that we're talking about would be under 10,000 square foot of development.
And earlier you said you had a question. Was that related to that? Also is related to your question about the 10,000 square feet?
Yeah, that was just because I knew that that was an issue with the question that you were raising there was where did we already exceed that 10,000 square foot of development? And I don't believe that we're doing that.
Mr. Norris, I think your item has been approved. And I
Okay.
think that the next item will
We'll
be
have one
to-
more motion.
Oh,
But yeah, you're right. I mean, it may tie into this motion. So then the third motion is to continue consideration of ongoing eligibility of contract 03 AP 014 to the April APAC meeting. And this provide additional time to look into APAC's previous motion from November 6th, 2020, recommending the board non-renew the Ag Preserve contract.
I'll second.
We'll do roll call. So Matt Mayton.
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey,
Aye.
Alex, Royce Larson,
Aye.
and then vote carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Norris, do you understand kind of the purpose for that very last motion?
I do. I don't know what the process is or the ramifications for being removed from, other than the change in taxation.
Correct. I mean, that would be the, once the recommendation to non-renew the contract would eventually go to the Board of Supervisors, and if they approve that, then that would set into motion the non-renewal period, which is essentially 9 full calendar years. And then your current reduced tax assessment that on the commercial ag production would slowly increase to whatever your Prop 13 or, current valuation would be, unrestricted valuation. So that's the main, you're correct, that's the main change.
Okay.
So, yeah, certainly, like we mentioned, this will be on the April agenda for consideration. And so if you're certainly encouraged to follow along for that meeting in terms of the information that we have and the potential direction of the committee.
Okay, sounds good.
You can contact the assessor's office if you're interested in finding out what the difference is going to be. You usually get the biggest increase in the first 2 years of non-renewal.
Okay,
And then it just it's very small increases each year after that.
okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Norris. Next item is item number 7 is AT&T Tier 3A telecom facility at Cathedral Oaks. Veronica King is the planner. I'm not sure if she's here. Teresa. I also have agent for the owner. Perhaps they may be online.
We don't have Veronica online, but let me see if we have the agent. Yes, Jerry.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. So maybe if we can pull up the site plan, Teresa. But yeah, thank you, Mr. Ambrose. While we pull up the site plan, maybe you can give a quick overview of what the project request is.
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a request for a new AT&T cell site facility up there at La Patera Ranch. It's being proposed in an area where there are already 2 cell site facilities, and all of the cell site facilities are proposed in an area that's not being used for active agriculture. That's a quick summary.
Okay, thank you. So maybe we can.
Just give,
Okay. And I'm gonna also try to follow up my aerial photograph as well.
And Mr. Chair, just so you guys know, there was a response to the annual questionnaire, so there's no issues there. They are reporting more than 100 acres planted in avocados and lemons.
If someone has a Google Earth access, that's probably the easiest way to explain what it is, where it is.
I'm bringing up Photo Mapper right now. While this may a couple of years old. It's on this parcel here. Looked like.
It's the graded area around that circular pond,
So is it closer to the
Right.
roadway?
right in there. Yeah, that right in there where that's just dirt.
Okay.
Yep, right in there.
Can be closer to these outbuildings here, or?
Yeah, so the tower itself is going to be to the right of the tree. Keep going right. Tower's right in there,
Uh-huh.
right behind the trees. And then the equipment enclosure, which is a 10 by 15 enclosure, is going to be next to the structure that's to the left, right there, exactly.
Okay.
There's underground conduits connecting everything.
I think you had mentioned, so for the equipment, that's going to be, is that a 10 by 10 fenced area?
A 10 by 15 fenced and with, we put slats on it.
Okay. Great. Any concerns, issues?
I think it's in compliance.
Sergio, did you say it was 100 acres?
If I'm not. More than 100 acres, I said, more than 100 acres.
Contract.
Oh, the entire contract is comprised of 3 parcels. This is one of the parcels. So there's 3 parcels.
48 acres.
Yeah, this one is 48 and a half, maybe close to 48,
Thank
8 and a half. And then there's 2 others.
Right.
One of them is
034, 035, and 039.
39, exactly. So altogether, they're more than.
And that, I think, is
600.
a good reminder, just for our Stephanie and I to coordinate with the planners, just to, because I think that's often, they agendize, because they're used to agendize just where the APN for the project, and we also want to know what additional parcels are part of the contract. And so that's one of the process improvement items that we can continue to strive for. But yeah, I don't see any issues with this, and I did look at the other parcels, and generally this is yeah, quite a bit of, in terms of planted acreage and most of the other ag buildings. So I didn't see any other ongoing eligibility issues of concern. Okay, great. So are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
If you're online and wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand. We do not have any public comment for this item.
Great. I'll make a motion that the request for the telecom facility is consistent with Uniform Rule 2-6 or 2-9, and that contract 68 AP008 meets ongoing eligibility requirements.
Second?
We'll do roll call. So Matt Maiden, Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
Royce Larson.
Aye.
The vote carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ambrose.
Thank you.
Next item, Riviera LLC, new single-family dwelling. Request of Eva Turnchuk, agent for the owners, and Olivia Beers is the planner. I'm not sure if either of those are online.
Hello, I'm Olivia. I'm the planner. I'm online. I can give a overview of the project if Eva's not. Oh, I see Eva too, actually.
Yeah, maybe Olivia, if you go ahead and then you can give the overview from the planner's perspective, and then Eva could add additional information.
Sure. Yeah, so this is a request for a new single-family dwelling and some accessory structures, a garage with a workshop. a mechanical shed, a pool, patio space, and there's an existing historic cottage on the site, which will be converted to an ADU once the new primary residence is built. The Ag Preserve contract number is 76 AP 40, and that encompasses 3 different parcels. The northernmost parcel will not have any work on it, and then the bulk of the project is the middle parcel, and then the southernmost parcel just has the access road on it. And yeah, I can turn it over to Eva, or if you guys have any other questions for me, let me know.
Yeah, if we go to A 1.0, we can give you kind of a good overview. So the next sheet on the plans, yeah. So this is, if you scroll down a little bit, yeah, perfect. So where you see bungalow, that's the existing historic cottage that's going to be converted to an ADU. Actually, I'm sorry, go down one more page. So that'll show you the proposed development as well. Perfect. So you see the bungalow there, cottage to remain. We have the new house, and the workshop and garage and studio are just to the north of that. And then we have the residential development envelope just kind of lined out, which, you know, is just, we basically just incorporated the bungalow and the new home. And then the septic system for the home will have leach lines to the right of the home, but the secondary system will be dry wells that will be up the hill. So that's why we kind of went up that steep area. And then we just kind of created that little area to the right, because that's the only other really flat parcel or flat area on this 120 acre area. So that's pretty much where we are. We are basically taking over the existing equipment yard area, but the actual ag use will remain fairly unaffected. We are removing a few avocado trees from this area to facilitate the development, but we're actually adding significantly more. So there will be a net increase of about 4,200 square feet of trees.
Can you go to page 5? That might, yeah, that might work. So Eva, just a question. Maybe it's not this one, but it looked like some of the proposed development for like the deck and things were within the 100-foot USH buffer area. And presumably that will need to be moved out of that area. And so I guess the question is this site plan and going to be revised such that the ag envelope will be revised?
Yeah, no. So the ag envelope will not be revised. We submitted a bio report that supported encroachment, that minor encroachment into the buffer. We've heard back from planning staff, actually yesterday, that's not, they can't support encroachment. They would rather there be a reduction in the buffer. And so if, again, assuming that's something the biologist can support, we had already had that discussion with the biologist anticipating that, and she can support that. So the buffer will just be reduced. So the site plan, as of right now, our plan is it won't change. We do understand that planning staff will have that bio report peer reviewed, but again, currently this is the equipment yard. There is no riparian habitat to speak of in this area, so we don't anticipate there being a disagreement amongst the biologists that this minor encroachment can occur.
I guess so. And so with that, you're saying that what's being shown on the 2 acre ag envelope polygon isn't anticipated to change the configuration.
Correct.
Okay.
Eva, can we get a little more information on the agriculture on the property? And just so you know, the county has sent multiple, for multiple years, the questionnaire, and the property owner has not responded. So,
We have, so I don't know if you recall, Sergio, but you and I spoke about this, I want to say in December. And you sent me new forms and we filled them out and submitted them. So you should have them.
Oh, you're probably right. I kind of, now that
Yeah.
you mentioned it.
Yeah, we did. I submitted
also
everything in January up through 2022. So this is a relatively new-ish owner. He's technically owned the property since 2018, but there was a living trust for the gentleman that had owned the property previously, which was an original owner and had been living in the cottage. And so really this owner has started working on the property, I want to say probably mid 2019. And for whatever reason, I think maybe because of the living trust, but all of those forms were still going to the elderly owner until last year. So that was the reason for the delay in getting those.
Right. Okay. I found your emails. Thank you, Eva.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. So, but yeah, just to reiterate, there are active avocado and walnut trees. It's about 7 acres total. There are 10 fallow acres. This property unfortunately was hit by both the Thomas Fire and the debris flow. So there's a fair amount of trees that were wiped out during both of those events. And the owner's just kind of assessing where and what, he'll replant as he kind of gets familiar with the site. But he is working with Robert Abbott. That's the ranch manager. And so we feel we're in pretty good hands.
Thank you, Eva. Any other questions or comments from committee members? Any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
We do not have any public comment.
Thank you. Okay, there aren't any other committee questions or comments. I will make a motion that APEC find the request for new single-family dwelling and conversion of existing dwelling to an ADU be found consistent with the uniform rules, and that contract 76 AP 040 meets ongoing eligibility requirements. Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Matt Maiden,
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo, David Lackey,
Aye.
Alex, Royce Larson, and vote carries 5-0.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Eva. Thank you, Olivia. Moving on. Well, let me first check. Do we have anybody here for Ag Land Properties? If not, I would prefer to jump to SoCal Gas first. Does it look like Teresa, if we have anybody from online from Ag Land?
No, we do actually.
Okay.
Is it Holly? Holly Harris?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Are you here for the Ag Land Properties item?
No, I'm sorry. I'm here. I'm here. I heard SoCal Gas.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, yeah, okay.
I'll go next time.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So then we do not.
Okay, great. So if the committee is okay, since we do have people here for the item number 10, I'm going to jump to that one first. So yes, item number 10 is SoCal Gas Dig 10 anomaly repair. Katie Knoll is the planner, and I think we also have an agent or representative. So maybe is Katie, if you're here? if
Yeah,
you
hi,
could
this is
provide-
Katie.
Great. Could you provide a quick overview of the project?
Sure. So this project includes the repair of a 215-foot segment of SoCalGas's high-pressure natural gas pipeline, line 247. And they found an anomaly within the pipeline in Dos Pueblos Creek that requires them to dig up the area and replace that segment of the pipeline. They're also proposing to install a temporary above-ground bypass line so that the gas service can continue during the construction duration, which they're currently proposing for 12 weeks. So access to that replacement segment and installation of the bypass line requires the applicant to work both on the west and the east sides of Dos Pueblos Creek. And the parcel to the west does contain an existing and active ag contract, which covers the entirety of the 503-acre parcel. So that contract covers orchard and grazing land. And because of the contract, the applicant has actually minimized their workspace areas on this parcel to pretty much just within SoCalGas's easement. But in order to kind of access the excavation area and install that bypass line, they need to kind of extend their work area just beyond their easement. And that will affect 3 avocado trees closest to the excavation area. So you can kind of see in this photo that gray dotted line is SoCalGas's easement. And then on the west side of the creek, that yellow line is their kind of work area to do this work, which kind of extends into a very small portion of the orchard. So again, like I said, 3 avocado trees will need to be removed to accommodate like equipment movement. But as soon as the work is complete, those trees will be replaced and then brought back into production. So as the planner, it's my understanding that maintenance of gas utility lines such as this one is considered compatible with those ag contracts. But the project is in front of you today to kind of confirm that consistency and receive any comments or recommendations from your commission.
Just a question, Katie. So you'd mentioned that there's going to be some removal of trees and then replanting. So as the agricultural landowner agreed to all of the sort of the mitigation measures with respect to the area to be disturbed in the work area?
When you say mitigation measures, do you mean just the fact that they're going to have to remove these trees, or could you specify?
I think you said they're going to remove them and then replant additional trees after the fact.
Correct. It's just they're going to replace them one-to-one. So once they remove their equipment and work's complete, they are going to replace those 3 trees.
And then in addition to that, you've got sort of the defined yellow area, the work area, and then the red area is the workspace. I'm sure there's going to be activity in that. Is there any post, like return the ground and the soil to the original condition of how it was?
Sure. Yeah. So most of that area is actually existing ag road for that orchard. So there's not much there. There's a couple non-native trees that they're proposing for removal, but the mitigation for those, they're going to keep it kind of out of the easement so that if something like this does happen in the future, they won't have to remove trees again. So everything within the easement, so a majority of the project is within the SoCalGas easement, and not much work will be, or I guess there's not much remediation work besides bringing the area back to the existing contours.
Okay, thank you.
Katie, the APNs that were listed under this item for this contract, I believe only one of them, 79-080-039, is under the listed contract number, 12 AP 028.
That's correct.
Are the other three, well, let me rephrase. Is the work being done on the parcel that is under contract?
Yes. So this is actually what you see on the screen is a good map. So everything under the yellow and the red is kind of disturbed area underneath this project description. So the disturbed area does cover 3 or 4 APNs. But the contract that we have kind of brought in front of you in question is only over the 039 APN.
And just information for the committee, this contract is actually made up of multiple parcels for a total of 2007, almost 2008 acres. And the owner does respond to the annual questionnaire.
Okay, great. Any other comments or questions from committee members? Good, Matt. Yeah. Any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
We do have someone in the audience. Oh, are you the?
Afternoon, Tim Mahoney. I'm with Southern California Gas Company. Really just wanted to come and make sure I answered any questions that you may have. We've got our line runs from the Goleta storage field up the coast. We've done several different anomaly digs there. We find these anomalies when we essentially inspect the pipe with the electronic robotic pipeline inspection gauge. And we find these anomalies, and then we need to go back in and essentially put eyes on the pipeline to do that. So in the process, we work with all the neighbors, our right-of-way, making sure that we work with the staff, and appreciate Katie's work on this so we can have a successful project. We always leave the land in as pristine a condition, usually even better than when we found it, because we'll do whatever it takes to make sure the creek is in there in its proper place. We did a job up recently in El Capitan and worked with the campground owners and the Goleta, the Gaviota Coast Conservancy. So got a good history of working up there and making sure our neighbors appreciate and are in the loop on what we do.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Katie, just real quick, is there any timing of construction of when it can and cannot occur?
Yes, because we're going into the actual creek, it does sort of need to happen during that dry season, which is end of summer. Mid to end of summer. And that is for biological concerns.
Okay, great. So it's not an emergency permit that they're seeking. I mean, it's an anomaly, but it's not an emergency permit that they're seeking right now.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then David, we do not have any public comment on this item.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, I will make a motion that the APEC fine the requests for the Southern California Gas Pipeline repair consistent with Uniform Rule 2-9, and that contract 12 AP 028 meets ongoing eligibility requirements.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Matt Maynard,
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex. Royce Larson.
Aye.
And then vote carries 5-0.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And then I think our last new item is Agland Properties, Inc. Contract 01 AP004A. And in your packet, this was on our agenda to consider ongoing eligibility of the contract. and a 60-day notice letter was sent to the property owner, identifying that the committee would be reviewing the Ag Preserve contract for ongoing eligibility at today's agendized meeting. And I think all of us kind of recall the long history of this property and the adjoining properties. The parcels were originally all under one contract, and then several parcels were sold off, where we have multiple ownerships under a single contract. So it necessitated each of the new ownership interests to apply for new Ag Preserve contracts for the respective ownership. One of the entities did for the ag land property owners. They had not made progress in applying for a new Ag Preserve contract, and hence the 60-day notice was sent to consider ongoing eligibility. I don't know from Alex and Sergio, if you have any other perspective or comments on.
No, I think you've summarized it very well. I think, yeah, I believe the other contract was renewed.
They had applied for a new contract.
They did apply for the new contract. I think there maybe was an issue about the legal lots, but I think that's probably not.
Needs to actually split the two contracts ownerships, but one, as you David mentioned, the east side of the road basically it was eventually applied for a new contract, and the west side is consequence of not responding to its needs.
Teresa, do we have anybody, just to check again, anybody from the Ag Land Properties owners or representatives online? And I don't think anybody's here in person.
So we don't have anybody online. We do have one person in the audience. Are you here to speak on this item? No? Okay. So no, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Ready for a suggested motion? Okay, so I will make a motion. The APAC request the Board of Supervisors consider non-renewal of contract 01 AP 004A regarding the contract being inconsistent with the uniform rules as outlined and described in the letter to the contract holder entitled 60-day notice regarding Ag Preserve contract dated December 15th, 2023.
I would only add that the original contract number was 01 AP 004 without the subletter at the end. The subletter was added just to differentiate the portion that was, just the parcels that
they were A and B.
to the exactly, and it B.
Is it necessary to include in the motion, or we can exclude it?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think maybe, in my opinion, it would be probably best to go to the original created contract number, which was without a subletter, and that would include everything, which to the contract that was already it's already given its own number. It doesn't really matter. It just covers everything.
So 004 still is hanging out there.
Exactly.
Okay, Council.
That works. And then Jonathan, could you just note in the minutes, maybe the kind of this little sub discussion, just so it's clear if we have to go back and figure it out, but I think the motion works like that.
Okay, great. Any other comments or discussion on the motion? Can we have,
Second motion.
oh, thank you, Alex. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Matt Maiden,
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo,
Aye.
David Lackey,
Aye.
Alex, and then Royce Larson.
Aye.
Vote carries 5-0.
Great, thank you. Any reports of committee members?
I just have one quick comment. So, I was just asked to pass on to the committee members. Make sure you fill out your Form 700 by April 3rd, because there is a late fee and they do enforce that. So,
Good to know.
just pass that on.
Is that a curiosity?
Compounds daily, yeah.
Commission, send it to
We're
the
serious about it.
commissioner's office. No, I'm kidding.
Um,
I only have a small report. The Tri-M contract number 70 AP 122. You may recall, we had asked that they re-record the non-renewal. They did that, and that was re-recorded on February 29th. Instrument number 2024-006175. They corrected the effective date.
Sergio?
Sorry, I was slow, but can I ask a question about that 700 form? And probably have counsel. Live in San Luis County, not here. I have no anything down here, so I've always just put none. Is that still on that form where it asks all of my money and et cetera, I've just put none. No.
It's just a conflict of interest form to make sure that, if something comes before APAC, you don't have, ownership in it or ownership in the neighboring parcel or an interest in the construction company doing those sort of things. So if you have anything that may be a conflict to this board, you should identify it.
That I know of.
And then just as a informational item, so Sergio, so this is regarding on our P&D website, some of our obviously applications and forms that relate to ag preserve contracts. One of the forms is informational steps for owner initiated non-renewal. Sergio provided some updated text that we've added to that, and also a link to a calculator, so that, because that was one of the ongoing challenges of incorrectly calculating sort of when does the non-renewal start and when does it end. So that is updated. So we just so everyone knows we have at least updated form for the owner initiated non-renewal with the calculator. And I think that's anything, Alex, from you? No. Great. Well, thanks, everyone. Yeah, a lot of items on today's agenda. We got under the noon hour.
My apologies for being
Oh,
late.
don't worry. No worries. So that concludes today's APEC meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.